Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel, Hands on Your Shoulders. This is the channel that I spend time talking about addiction, recovery, and sobriety. My name is Monty Joseph. For those of you who are brand new, click on the link and not click on the link, sorry. Uh, Join me in actually learning some more in regards to the things in around sobriety. So, one of the things I wanted to mention is how, some of the things that I learned along the way in regards to my 30-year career as you know, as a counselor, in the counseling field. And my last 33 years has been in recovery and thinking about all the things in regards to my recovery, but also doing the service work of actually, speaking to a lot of individuals about their sobriety. One of the things that came up once upon a time is I was actually looking at two mountains on two sides of a valley, and they were very high up and, very, dangerous looking in regards to cliffs and, wind and the treacherous, paths that it had, you know, and both of them were very formidable in height in the way they looked, and it was in a very narrow valley, so very high up, and you could just look up at both, and amazing to look at. But one of the thoughts I had about it is that if you were to stick sobriety on one side, that consists of like love, respect, compassion, honesty, truth, justice, a lot of things, and that are ethical and worthwhile. And then on the other side, you stick uh, a person's addiction, whatever type of drug or alcohol that it is that they want. That's what's at the top of that mountain. And both are equally treacherous and difficult paths to actually go. But the addict will look at, all the love and happiness that could possibly be and be crazy enough to crawl themselves up the other way towards their addiction. That is the insanity of addiction, is that it is the person's willingness to go to all and every extent to actually get their addiction. So one of the thoughts I had around that was like, wow, if that is what a person is willing to do, just to get to their addiction, you know, and how they look at it like, oh, that's way too much work. Well, you were willing to crawl up that versus that. This one equals kind of like a mental and emotional freedom, while this is, it's servitude to the drug, you know. And it always amazes me that people often, continue to choose that. And it's not because it is difficult or treacherous or anything like that. It's familiar. It's what they're familiar with. And, they're already familiar with the terrain up there, with what it looks like, with what it's going to feel like, what they're going to experience mentally and emotionally. It's all of that. And in the other direction is the unknown for them, and it's scary. So a lot of times, yeah, the addict will choose that direction as opposed to going in that direction. So it always amazes me as to how often that ends up, kind of being a slight theme. And I always tell people, especially when they're struggling in their sobriety for such a long time, I'm like, well, you already know what's up there. You already know what the trip looks like, and the ins and outs of it, and how to get from one spot to another. You already know that, going up there, but it's just as treacherous as this side. It's just that you're unfamiliar with it. And once you go up there, once you crawl up towards sobriety and, happiness and joy and freedom and, mental stability, emotional stability, forgiveness, love, respect, you know, it's hard to kind of look down, uh, down towards the bottom, and then like, look at the other side and see the drug side of there. And sometimes people think to themselves, I'm going to crawl all the way back down and go back up that hill. This is too hard, because it is hard work. It's hard work on both sides. But the reality is the long-term benefits that you gain from your sobriety is just right there. So if you're ever wondering or thinking to yourself like, hey, I want to quit, I already know what it looks like up that mountain. I wonder what it looks like up the other. I wonder what it would feel like to be free. If that ends up being somewhere where you're at, that might be, the solution, the thought you can have. It's the tale of two mountains, and whichever one you choose will get you to the immediate relief or the continuous relief that you are looking to get. All right. So, thank you very much for listening. And as always, have fun, be safe, and play nice with the other kids.